Hey, welcome, Julia Landauer. I'm so excited to see you.
Thank you too.
And to everyone watching this, I'm Kelly Hoey, author of the book Build Your Dream Network, and the phenomenal person on the screen that I am sharing with the screen with is Julia Landauer, who you are a force of nature. As I always like to do the progression of phenomenalness, as I like to think of it, from New York, STEM degree from Stanford, drives NASCAR.
Yeah, all the big things. I love that. Thank you. Yeah, it's not a necessarily traditional career path.
No, not exactly. So how are you doing? You had a big year lined up, and what's the status with NASCAR this year?
Yeah, so for a quick background, yeah, I've been climbing the ranks of NASCAR. Just like other sports, we have minor leagues. Been racing. I graduated from school in 2014, moved to North Carolina, which is the heart of NASCAR, and just been climbing the ranks. And I've had a few part-time seasons just because of struggling with funding a little bit. It's a financially driven sport. And then this year, I got aligned with a championship-winning team in the European NASCAR Series, and was so excited because it was full-time going for the championship, knowing I had the equipment and the support and the talent to be able to go and win races. And obviously pandemic hits, and I mean, overall, I can't complain too much. I'm healthy. I have a roof over my head and everything, but it was frustrating. And as many entrepreneurs or any just hard workers know, when you finally see the light at the end of the tunnel and you kind of feel like years of hard work is coming together, to have it postponed is frustrating. Like, I know I will go racing, maybe this year, maybe next year, we just don't know. But it's just like everyone, it's a frustrating time right now, and just trying to keep moving forward.
It sucks. I'm going to say it because you didn't say it.
Yep.
And for anyone just joining, I am Kelly Hoey, author of Build Your Dream Network, chatting with Julia Landauer, who is a NASCAR driver. And I have to share this for my good friends at the Win Forum. I know. Yeah. Yes, Julia. And if you've got questions, put them in the chat box. And ask your questions of Julia, and I will share them. Let's go back to something that you shared there. Tell us the structure of. Let's talk about the financial structure of what it means, because I also want to go into the fiscal and the fiscal, the financial structure of what it means to be a race car driver. I mean, you just what? It's not just glamorous,
sure.
Julia.
No, you don't just arrive and go fast and turn left. So what a lot of, NASCAR is, it's a technology sport. It's the most technology-centric sport out there, or auto racing in general. And with that, technology is expensive, and we're constantly pushing the limits. There's the hard cost of just, fuel, engineering, bodies, backup cars, labor, overhead, all that stuff. And so through the recession that we had in the late 2008-ish, there was a lot of corporate sponsorship. There still is, but I think when we went into that recession, I personally think there was a shift in where corporations were spending money, and you started to see more personal funding going into racing. So, the teams are still pushing the limits, the series are still pushing the limits, but it's still expensive. And so you're seeing just the sponsorship model shift a little bit, and it really is a little more pay to play in those development years where I am. And NASCAR has 3 professional series. My goal is to, sooner rather than later, be in that first professional series, the NASCAR Truck Series. But it all costs money to get there. So what I've done is kind of built my platform up off the racetrack, and I do a lot of motivational speaking and sharing stories and inspiration that way, doing various branded partnerships with different corporations who are mission driven. I really advocate for women's empowerment, and then also STEM education and advocacy for that, because it is so important and so near and dear to my heart. And so really just kind of finding those companies with similar missions so that we can build up a brand and I can get paid to go racing. So it's like, very, fiscally cut and dry there. But so I've been doing that, and it's been really exciting, and it's been good to get a few wins in the last, few years, and to be able to commit to a team that's really fantastic. And that's where we are now.
Wow. So building the personal brand is not for the career after NASCAR. It is for the career in NASCAR.
I would definitely say both. I think and that's a good distinction. I started racing go-karts when I was 10. So I've been doing this majority of my life now, and I'm 28. And so even when I was at school, what I was doing was so purposely geared towards my racing, but also being very realistic that there are only 4 level NASCAR drivers in the world. So your chances are quite slim. So I think it's kind of been balancing, how can this serve me now and how can this serve me later?
Yeah. I mean, it's because often enough I encounter people who the thing for the later career, or they don't think about the later career until it's that time for the later career, or they don't think of the things they need to do that are foundational, that will enhance the career they have today, but also are foundational for that career in the future.
Yeah. And I think that actually, this is going to tie in to a lot of what you discuss in your book and what you talk with people about with the idea of networking. And there's one of the things that I've always been proud that my brain goes towards is that, I try to figure out how I can tie, my Stanford experience, my New York experience, just what companies are doing, brands that I respect and admire and like how they could possibly tie to racing. And so a lot of times I have fairly out there ideas that don't sell, I don't get people to buy into them, but I kind of have always had this can do, let's try it. Worst case is that no one's going to respond to you. And so being able to reach out to a lot of different sectors, essentially cold emailing or calling or pulling my network to see, hey, the people in the industries that you've become aware of and familiar with, which again also helps later on, or whatever next phase is. Let's say I race as long as I want to, and then whatever's next. So it's like, when in doubt, definitely reach out, I think.
Yeah. And you're always doing that triangulation or the Venn diagrams of where's the sweet spot between all of these things. There was something just slipping my mind. What I wanted to ask you about. Oh, I know. How long is a career in NASCAR? Like, what is a typical career length?
Yeah, so I think the average across all the 3 professional NASCAR series is like 3 or 4 years. But that's assuming usually it's because of financial reasons that you don't continue. But if you're you have that machine behind you, and the team support, Mark Martin was in his 50s when he retired. Jeff, I think, was early to mid 40s when he retired a couple years ago. Jimmy Johnson, I think, is 44-ish, 42-ish. So you can go pretty late. I think the question becomes, family dynamics or other things you want to try. So I don't know that, if I can make it, I don't know that I go that far, but you can. And I think this is another area that a non-racing fan might not know, is that it's extremely physical, but it's more like a mix of endurance and mental endurance. And so it's not just brute strength. And so it means that someone small like me, and all the drivers are, for the most part, relatively on the smaller side, because that means if you're lighter, you can allocate weight to different parts of the car. So that's, from a vehicle dynamics perspective, that's beneficial. And so, but it's, you have to be good at heat training. You have to be good at staying focused for hours on end and muscling around machines. But the whole point of all of that, as I digressed a little bit, is just that it's, it's something that you can do for a long time, because it's not just brute strength, it's reaction time. It's, we do a lot of neurological training with my trainer. So it is an interesting sport in that regard.
Okay. So when it's racing season, or maybe sort of the prep up to the racing, what's a typical day? Like you're talking mental training, you're talking endurance, you're talking strength. I've seen your, besides the post that I love of you hanging out in your racing gear, in isolation, but we can talk about that. I love those. But I've seen you with ropes in the gym and the weights and all that kind of stuff. Talk about all this talk about a typical, Julia Landauer, what's your work when you're not on the track? What's a work day look like for you?
Yeah, great question. And it is changing, like most entrepreneurs. You deal with what needs to be addressed. But the constants that are in there are physical training. And I work with a trainer at Podium Performance Fitness, which is motorsports specific training. And what I mean by that is that, we do strength and conditioning. We do more cardio and endurance training, but we also do neurological training. So when you're using a lot of app games. And so, when you're really fatigued, then, keeping the mental focus with various types of games. We also do neck training, and very specifically building up the muscles, because my trainer described it, if your head's an egg, when you start training, your neck is like a straw and you want to build that out to a more robust cylinder. So primarily so that you can delay the onset of any concussions, because concussions do happen in racing. And so there's the very preventative measures, but then also just staying strong so you can hold your head up when you're driving for hours on end like that. So lots of training that way. And we also do breathing training. And just if you think about being in a race car, you're like scrunched down. And so being able to be efficient when you're breathing, when you're tired, when you're hot, and just getting the most oxygen that you can. So I do that. And then I do a lot of business, and whether it's following up with leads for speaking or partnerships, or partnerships I already have and doing the content for them, it really is changing. And then I also do a lot of video watching, and I'm working with engineers this year, and we have a little more access. Drivers have more access to data, and so looking at in-car data and how the car is going to behave on the track, and visualizing is really important. So it's a little all over the place, and that's when I'm home. And then I'm traveling a lot, whether it's for business, for racing. So it's all over the place.
Wow. Like, that's like so many things that you sort of don't. You think
And then I sleep a lot. I will say I sleep a lot. Like I'm like my 8 to 9 hours a night, and recovery is very important. And so, yeah.
Well, I mean, when I say, because you're not just having physical exhaustion, you're having the mental exhaustion as well, and that would just knock you out for its own 8 to 10 hours of sleep.
Yeah, and I think again, as I really view myself as an entrepreneur, where, as we've discussed, I need to build the brand and the funding, and so it's volatile. It's a volatile career to go into, and you have moments when things are going really well, and then moments when they're not going well. And as a freelancer, income's inconsistent, and so it's just all of those normal stressors, I think, are very relevant to me as well. And so that's where I'm kind of lucky, where regular physical activity is something that I have to do, but I also think that's an incredible way to stay sane when you have so much going on and a lot of stuff that's out of your control.
What keeps you going? I mean, that's a lot, like the volatility, the uncertainty, the work commitment to do it. I mean, we've sort of stressed that you are an entrepreneur. Yes, you are a race car driver, but you are an entrepreneur. What keeps you going?
A couple of things. Love for racing. I just going fast, winning, working with the team. It's racing's like this puzzle where all these different factors have to come together. The car has to be perfect. The driver, the team has to perform perfectly under pit stops. Someone else can't take you out, or anything could happen. So when it comes together, it's just like this most intoxicating high that I've ever experienced, and I just love it. So there's that, and then also just I think I noticed early on, when I would recognize that there were things that I could have done better, or there were things that I could have tried for harder and I didn't get them, or they didn't work out, and that feeling of regret that you could have done something more, is the worst. For me, that's one of the worst feelings you can have. And so I think, life's short, and there's a lot of cool stuff to do. And I, want to know that I want to be able to look back and think, I did what I could. It might not work out the way I want it to, but if I can kind of take ownership of every step that I took, that's something that's very important to me.
So is that love for what you do and that taking ownership, is that what gets you over the downsides, or the?
I think so, and wine and ice cream and good movies when you need to unplug. I mean, it's nothing's black and white. But yeah, and I think I think being in tune with your gut and what's kind of what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, what you can do to fix it. I think that, and I'm a competitive person. Like I want to succeed in things that I'm doing. So I think it's partially what I was born with. And then the other things, as you said, want to take ownership and wine.
Yeah. the WINE, not WHI.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about Team Julia. This is not this is not a solo sport. What does it take together to get the right team? To find the right people?
Great question. So I'm going to kind of break this up into two things. There's the away from the racetrack team. So, managers, families, friends, support system, that I can, and mentors that I can bounce ideas off of. And you've obviously been an incredible mentor to me, so thank you. And but then on the racetrack side, it's really interesting because the way it works is that a driver essentially goes to a team and they rent the car from the team, and they also rent all the people and the crew chiefs. And so the driver doesn't necessarily have a ton of control over who specifically they're working with. I can pick the teams I'm approaching, and I can, when I joined in 2016, I joined an established team. They had a couple of drivers they had confirmed already. And so I kind of worked with the team owner who I'd known previously to figure out personality wise who might be the right people to have as the crew chief. And then in that year was really important for me because I also learned the importance of taking on the leadership role. And I think the driver always gets the glory. We're the ones who jump out of the car and everything in victory lane. But, we wouldn't be able to do it without a ton of really dedicated people who are working their hardest. And so I think learning the little specific things that individuals need to feel that they're contributing and to feel that they're valued, and to learn how to motivate the team. If I'm all pissed off and angry for whatever reason, that's going to translate to the team. So regardless of the team you have, I think communication, encouraging people to be their best, to kind of taking ownership and taking that responsibility that, you have an influence on the people that you're working with.
Oh, massive, massive. We had a question here since you mentioned about movies and ice cream and whatever. Someone wanted to know, have you seen Qualified?
I haven't even heard of it. I got to check that out.
All right. Well, thank you, Maureen.
Thank you, Maureen.
Well, so if other folks have got questions for Julia, as you can see, there's a chat feature on both Periscope and YouTube where our conversation is live, interactive video streaming. So if you've got questions, you have comments or movie suggestions?
Oh, always down for movie suggestions. And I will say for any racing fans or just any cinematic fans, now I'm told. Ford versus Ferrari. There we go. That was such a well done movie. Like, one, it's a great movie just by itself, but I thought it did a really wonderful job of capturing just some of what is so addicting about racing and the speed and all of that and the personalities. I think one thing that I've always loved about the racing atmosphere, and I was raised in New York City and I went to university, and there's the characters that you meet in the racing world are absolutely fantastic and out there and somewhat irreverent a lot of the time. And for me, that was like a really cool outlet and change of pace for the school I went to and all that stuff. So it was just, it's a cool environment that they capture in the movie.
And here, Maureen's back there. Janet Guthrie documentary.
Of course. That didn't register with me right away, but I haven't seen it still. So I will add that to my list.
Thank you, Maureen. Love that. Thank you. So like so many things to go on this. Oh, you know what I was thinking about when you were talking about the team and the fact that you as the driver are like selling yourself into an established team in terms of the car, all that kind of stuff. Your advocacy, we often talk about with respect to women in terms of negotiating on their own behalf and advocating for themselves. Do you do all, like, does your manager, like, how does that work? Like, talk about that aspect and talk about whether or not in all your years of racing, if you've noticed a change in yourself in terms of your like negotiation of like, this is what I need, this is what the kind of team I want, rather than saying, oh my God, I'm so grateful to be racing and I'll just take whatever they give me.
For sure. So it varies from driver to driver, team to team. There are some, top level cup drivers who are their own agents and they, do discuss all their own terms. Other people work with agents. When it comes to the team, just discussing what the contract looks like, I work directly with the teams. And part of it, again, it's kind of knowing where my value is. And it became a lot easier after 2015 when I won a second championship and I, kind of had that credibility. I think that was really helpful. But I think also just, knowing what to ask for and what you need from the team, whether it's support, whether, whatever it might be. I think you just learn that as you go along. But it's a scary environment anyway. And like anytime you're asking for things or, I think at the end of the day, I think the most important thing when discussing any kind of contract or what you want is to make sure that you're protected from all angles. And luckily I'm extremely compulsive and, kind of think about all the worst case scenarios. And so I think just thinking about that helps in protecting, who I am, the brand I've built, and moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of brands that you look to work with, I'm going to suspect you and I have probably some of the similar values, but let's hear it in case anyone is watching this.
Yeah.
Needs to know, who does Julia Landauer work with?
Yeah, we and I've talked about this a couple of times on kind of bigger platforms, but the idea of a feminine hygiene and tampon sponsor is like dream sponsor right now, because I think it, everything from normalizing feminine hygiene and menstruation, I think, is important, and also just that it doesn't detract from us, and just the idea of bringing that into NASCAR especially, I think, is really cool. I'm sure a lot of people would get really pissed off about it, but I think it would be amazing. I also really like tech focused enablers, either services or apps or products that empower the user to go do things, and whether that's from buying a car. What I find so interesting about some of these like used car sales apps and websites is it takes away kind of that dealership floor mentality, which has historically hurt women in the process, because there are preconceived notions that women don't know anything about cars and therefore they can be taken advantage of. And so I like that kind of company, and then obviously if there are wine or ice cream companies, we love that. Got to stay on brand. But I mean,
or Netflix,
exactly. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to people who and organizations that are creative and want to kind of push the boundaries a little bit on how you can brand, market, communicate. And sorry if there's rain in the background. It just started pouring here. Sorry if you hear that in the background.
No, you're getting the rain we had in New York a while ago. It was like fabulous spring rain, like just
huge. Yeah, it's very loud. But I think and so I've got a couple of companies that we're pursuing, and we'll see.
Oh, there we go. So now folks know what Julia is looking for. And I'm thinking, a female founder of a Claire Coder social enterprise. Aunt Flo is watching.
Yes. But it's cool and it makes sense. And it's like I think what people don't realize with NASCAR is that it has almost a 40% female fan base. So it's a large number of women who are watching. And so anyway, just a little informational session there on NASCAR fans.
I think it's important. I met female founders of a t-shirt company that were doing like sports t-shirts, and their salesperson was saying something to me, and I'm like, stop. Like, and it was at a woman's event. And she's like, oh, you want to buy a t-shirt for your husband? And I'm like, no. Do you want your boyfriend, another man in your life? I'm like, I'm the hockey fan. I want the Rangers t-shirt. And the importance of Title IX in not just, women athletes, but turning a lot of women into rabid sports fans.
Yeah.
And the business, you can start to see, like you've seen this with like the NFL, like how things are kind of shifting, because not like going to, the girls have to watch it with the boys. No, get the boys off the couch. We're watching our game.
Yeah. And I think kind of to that point, I'll plug, just because I really like their account. There's an Instagram account called On Her Turf. And I think it's an NBC affiliate. I'm not entirely sure, but they do such a wonderful job of showcasing women across sports, across, disciplines within sports. And I think, seeing that is just so powerful, and seeing women coaches for male teams is really powerful. And I think kind of some of the communications around the WNBA and, just it's been really cool to see all that. And I'll never forget in 2015, which was a really cool year. I was racing every week. I raced at the same racetrack in Virginia, and when I made it to Victory Lane one of the times, a fan came out as like a 6 or 7 year old girl, and she just said like she didn't know that women could race because there were just no examples of it. And like it was 2015, so it kind of broke my heart a little bit, but at the same time, it was really exciting that, kind of to quote Gina Davis, if she can see it, she can be it. And I think, we are seeing more women coming up across many forms of motorsports in the development series. And so, and luckily with social media, I think athletes in development series or in minor leagues are now getting more attention than they did when it was just purely TV based. And I think something else is really cool. One of my friends started the company Overtime, and they highlight high school athletes. And I think that whole dynamic is really cool for showcasing talent, even if you don't necessarily already have the platform to be famous, right? And so I think that kind of can become a great equalizer in terms of showcasing women and minorities or people who you wouldn't expect to be doing or being involved in certain sports as doing it. So it's really powerful. It's cool.
Oh, it's like absolutely fantastic. All right, I'm like looking at all my notes here in terms of this year, is there going to be any racing, or is it this year entirely like
as of right now? We're set to go at the end of June in the Czech Republic, so we will just see. I think it gets updated as things change. I have not yet driven this car in the dry, so I've only driven it in the rain. So we will see. I'd love to try to get some dry experience and we still have to do kind of insight into racing. We still have to do like the fittings and everything. So, the seat is permanently put in the car, and so we get it and we measure it so that it's locked tight so that you don't move around at all, and it's specifically built to me and my size and my rib cage and everything, and so we have to do all of that pre-race stuff, because if I showed up right now I may or may not reach the pedals. So I got all those housekeeping things to take care of, so fingers crossed that it's sooner rather than later, and if not, we adapt. At the end of the day, everyone's in the same boat, which is wild to think about, because I feel like I'm sitting here at home and not doing very much, but oh wait, a lot of people are also sitting at home not doing as much as they want to be. So it's just definitely important to get outside and take walks during this time.
So the season, so the NASCAR Europe that you were racing, it was supposed to start end of June.
Or in June. The first race was originally scheduled for April 25th and 26th. So this weekend, coming up, was supposed to be our first weekend in Spain. So that didn't happen. And then our second race was supposed to be beginning of June in the UK, but they've canceled all on-track activity in the UK through the end of June. So it's just, we're kind of going with local governments and guidelines and
got it. Oh, got it. Okay. And then the season and that tour in Europe, how long would that take you over there?
So I will be commuting back and forth. So it is double weekends, and there are 7 weekends. So it was spread out pretty nicely throughout the year. And you just do one race on Saturday, one race on Sunday, in 7 different countries. So like Spain, Italy, Czech Republic, UK, the Netherlands, which I've never been to, Germany, and I'm missing a couple, but that's okay. So I'll be flying back and forth and spending a lot of money on airlines.
Oh my God. Like, I'm going to say all the things you have to take into account of running the business of Julia Landauer.
As I said, luckily I'm compulsive and it works out okay. Big advocate for writing notes and setting reminders.
Yes. Now you mentioned a few M words, but let's go back to the one mentor.
Yeah.
And I am flattered. I never know if I'm mentoring someone or they're mentoring me at this point in life. So This is a two-way street of mentorship. Mentors in the industry that you have, if there's people that you've specifically sought out to get guidance and advice from, and how, I think I get asked a lot by women who are in their careers, probably similar age as you, in terms of like, all right, I'm in an industry that's like all dudes. How do you get the mentorship in those situations? And you might have some ideas and guidance.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to say that I have never held a traditional job in a corporate setting, and so it might be a little bit different. But I have a couple of thoughts on that. One is that I have definitely had heroes and role models throughout my life, and they've been a mix of men and women, and I've kind of picked the traits and the character traits about each of them that I like and try to mush them all together into the ideal. And one of my mentors is Lynn St. James, and she is a retired racer, and she raced in Indy cars and in sports cars, and she's been retired for a little while now, but she has done a lot for helping women in the sport and just giving her experience. And I think that's really powerful. And so she's been really great in the sport. I have some male mentors from Stanford who have been so helpful in guiding me through some of the business sides, because I'm kind of learning as I go. And so being able to bounce ideas off of them. And then even in, kind of on the corporate side of the racing community, I think I reach out to people if I have specific questions, which I think it's important if you're going to ask for help, specific questions that can help narrow down the person. Because now as I'm getting older, I'm also getting questions, and it's like, you want to help people and you want to help, where you can, but an open-ended question that's kind of vague is like, I don't even know where to start with this, as you know, I'm sure.
This is not a paid advertisement for something I've said before, and I'm just sitting here thinking, thank you.
Yeah, no, but it's true, and I hadn't realized it until, and my mom had mentioned that when you're asking for help, be specific. But on the receiving end, I now really get that. But back to your original question, I think it kind of navigating and finding the mentors, or in a field of dudes, like who you can reach out to. I think part of it is just innate gut reaction to, if you have good chemistry with someone, or if you're someone that you think respects you, that you can trust, who is real with you. I think for the most part, I have like a no bullshit tolerance that I feel like has helped guide me in leaning on people who are helpful and avoiding those who might not be. But you've got to practice. I think it comes down to, reaching out to people, going to events, no matter where you are, just trying to be able to, and now I'm struggling for words now, but be able to say what you want to say and get your points out concisely and clearly, that will help you just kind of sift through people who might be helpful or might not be. Loaded question. I don't feel like I gave that the best answer I could have.
No, but there was part of it, because I think a lot of the times people are looking for, I hate to put it this way, the knight in shining armor, like the one mentor who will always be there for you and give you every piece of advice. And you really hit on something with me that I often say to people is like, ask people a question they can answer. Like, ask them something specific. And ask them that question, because getting the answer and seeking advice and getting an answer, that's mentorship. And it doesn't have to be a lifelong coffee date, whether in real life or virtual, every second week for the rest of your life. It could be that one moment, and that is mentorship. Yeah.
And I also think, to that point, like it is an element of being respectful. And if it's, the more pointed you are, it seems like more homework you do. And I think that's really appreciated by a lot of people. But also, I think there's also a nice balance, and this just depends on your relationship with each person or each mentor, but, the mix of the personal and the professional, and if that's something you're comfortable with. And I think kind of finding that balance just, again, takes practice and it takes trying things. But I think one of the things I've been really lucky with is that my world does kind of bend in between the professional and the personal, because it is so intertwined. But mentors are still people, right? Yep. And mentees are still people. And it's about fostering a, respectful and involved relationship. And it could be all the time, and it could be, once a year. But yeah, I think there's no like set strategy or formula that you need for having conversations with people and helping people.
Right. And hey, like everything else in life, we gotta let these things transform and morph, because God only knows,
And it's always evolving, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or something will come up, and guess what? We got to find a way to keep life going and moving along. Anything I was trying to think in terms of other things. We've talked about the entrepreneurship, the fundraising, the brand. Have we missed anything?
I mean, I think we've covered a lot. We've been super efficient. I love that. And I guess I have a question for you, because I've been asking this for people. Is there something you've been doing while in quarantine that has been new, or that you've tried doing it either on a daily basis or a weekly basis, that has been really helpful for you for staying sane, calm, whatever it might be?
This video series, it was like, why not? I think this is one of those things. Is like, why not? This is a good time to experiment. I'm here. What's holding me back? It doesn't need to be perfect. This gives me a chance to catch up with people. You can find people who, hey, you would have been on a flight or in England, the Czech Republic, somewhere else, and I wouldn't have been able to. So this was a complete experiment. I also started that daily Monday through Friday kind of weekday Twitter chat, and that was a way to manage my time online, because I thought otherwise I could fall down into a social media rabbit hole and never come out. So those are things I did. What about you?
That's great. I will be the first to admit that I can always read more, and need to be a little more diligent about that. And so I've been doing that every morning, which has been really wonderful. And that led me onto a deep Kennedy assassination, reading all the histories, all the conspiracy theories, just because why not? I got all the time. So that was fascinating. Learned a lot. And then I also am trying to continue to be really diligent with exercising. And I know that my sister goes out for walks once or twice a day just to get some fresh air, get some time, and physical activity is really important. And it's very easy to become very sedentary when you're at home, but just doing little things. So those two things have been really big.
Yeah. I'm gonna say I've added in the meditation, and I've been so grateful that ClassPass has had so many online classes. So all of those good things. I want to close off this. How can we be of help to you?
Oh, thank you. I think that if you guys want to follow along at Julia Landauer across all the platforms, that's always helpful. I love hearing from you guys. I love answering questions and just hearing, what resonates with people and what doesn't, and sharing what stuff you think is cool. But that's where we're at right now.
Cool. Well, I cannot wait to see your posts of racing again. I will be looking and watching for those.
In the meantime, keep your eyes out for the Stig-like photos that I am posting now. I've had a lot of fun getting that content together.
Those are so much fun. So much fun. Some humor in all of this. I want to say, there we go, from our great friends at the Win Forum. Thank you for showing up. Thank you to everyone who's joined us today. This content will sit on YouTube, of course, and people can watch it there. And indebted, thank you for showing up. Thank you, Julia. Please stay safe. And here's to your continued phenomenal success. More of it. We need it.
And thank you for having me and inviting me. It was so nice talking with you.
Good to see you. Thanks, Julia.
Thanks.